In the year 2026, an almost unbelievable situation is unfolding at Sandringham. The private estate, long considered the most personal residence of the British royal family, Queen Camilla, who currently holds the title of Queen, has reportedly been prevented from entering a private set of rooms within the estate itself. This is not an unfounded rumor or a fictional story. According to sources close to the royal household, the door leading to that private wing has been placed under legal protection by lawyers, and the person behind this controversial decision is Princess Anne. Princess Anne is said to have taken this step in order to protect control over a private space she has used for many years at Sandringham. However, the decision immediately created tension with Queen Camilla, who had reportedly planned to spend part of the summer there in quiet retreat. Instead of a peaceful royal holiday, Sandringham has suddenly become the center of a quiet but highly sensitive confrontation within the Windsor family. To understand why this story has attracted such intense attention, it is necessary to look at the special meaning Sandringham holds for the British royal family. It is not simply a country residence. For generations, Sandringham has been regarded as the spiritual heart of the royal family. The estate, which spans more than 20,000 acres, is where successive monarchs traditionally gather each Christmas, temporarily stepping away from the formality of London to spend time in a more relaxed family setting. It was at Sandringham that Queen Elizabeth II spent many important holiday seasons with her family. It is also the place where Prince Philip chose to retire after stepping away from public duties. And it was here, within this quiet estate, that Queen Elizabeth II passed away, closing a remarkable chapter in the history of the British monarchy. Yet in the year 2026, the place once seen as a symbol of family unity has unexpectedly become the center of a new tension within the House of Windsor. This has led many observers to ask an important question. Is Princess Anne attempting to protect the heritage and traditional order of the royal family, or has her decision gone too far? Comment number 1 if you support Princess Anne. Comment number 2 if you believe Queen Camilla is the one being treated unfairly in this situation. And do not forget to like and subscribe to follow the full development of this royal drama that is capturing public attention. Sandringham has long been regarded as one of the most private yet important symbols of the British royal family. Unlike Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, which belong to the Crown Estate and are closely tied to the official role of the state, Sandringham carries a completely different meaning. It is a private property of the royal family, a place deeply connected to personal life and to traditions that have lasted for generations. For this reason, any dispute involving Sandringham is never simply about property. It often reflects deeper tensions within the House of Windsor itself. The history of the estate began in the year 1862, when Queen Victoria purchased the land in Norfolk as a gift for her son, who would later become King Edward VII. From that moment, Sandringham was defined as a private family property rather than a state residence. This made it one of the very few places where members of the royal family could live with a greater degree of privacy compared with the official palaces. Over more than a century and a half, Sandringham gradually developed into a vast estate covering roughly 20,000 acres. This figure often surprises people when placed into context. The size of Sandringham is nearly comparable to the entire island of Phu Quoc in Vietnam. Within this large estate, there is not only the main residence, but also farms, woodland, lakes, and a number of houses used by different members of the royal family. For many decades, Sandringham has also been the center of one of the most famous family traditions of the British monarchy. Every Christmas, members of the royal family gather here to spend the holiday together. The image of the royal family walking to St. Mary Magdalene Church on Christmas morning has become a familiar ritual captured by the media for many years. For the public, it represents one of the rare moments when the royal family appears together in a more relaxed atmosphere compared with the formal ceremonies in London. Sandringham is also connected to several important milestones in modern royal history. In the year 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away here, bringing to a close a reign that lasted more than 70 years. News of her passing at Sandringham turned the estate into a powerful emotional symbol for the entire nation. Many years earlier, Prince Philip had chosen a smaller house on the estate known as Wood Farm as his retirement home after stepping back from public duties. Unlike the grandeur of the main residence, Wood Farm was known as a quiet place where he spent much of his later life reading, painting, and staying away from the attention of the media. Within Sandringham, each residence is connected to the personal story of different members of the royal family. Anmer Hall, a house located within the estate grounds, is now the familiar country home of Prince William and Catherine whenever they leave London to spend time privately with their family. The house was given to them by Queen Elizabeth II after their marriage, and has since become one of the few truly private spaces for the Wales family. Not far from Anmer Hall stands Park House, another residence with deep historical meaning. It was here that Princess Diana was born. In later years, the house was used for charitable purposes. Yet the memory of Diana's birth continues to make it an inseparable part of Sandringham's story. Another residence on the estate is Marsh Farm, where Prince Andrew lived for many years. The presence of several members of the royal family within the same estate has created a unique living structure, one in which family relationships remain both close and complex. This structure has also made Sandringham more than simply a place for rest. It has long been a space where informal family arrangements have been maintained for many years. Many houses, many private wings, and many different usage rights have traditionally been determined through quiet understanding among members of the royal family, rather than through clearly written legal documents. However, those unwritten agreements that existed for decades have begun to weaken as the year 2026 arrived. As generations change and power within the family shifts, the boundaries that were once naturally respected have started to become less clear. In that context, what first appeared to be a simple disagreement about the use of a private wing at Sandringham quickly escalated into a serious legal issue, to the point that lawyers ultimately became involved. To understand why the dispute at Sandringham in the year 2026 escalated so quickly that legal intervention became necessary, many observers believe it is important to look back at the relationship between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla, a relationship that has developed over several decades. This is not a conflict that suddenly appeared in recent years. In reality, the distance and suspicion between these two women has existed for nearly half a century. The roots of this tension can be traced back to the early 1970s, when Camilla first entered the social circle of Prince Charles. At that time, Princess Anne was still young but had already begun to play an active role in royal duties. Anne was raised in an environment that emphasized discipline, duty, and tradition. From a very early age, she developed a reputation as one of the hardest-working members of the royal family. For many consecutive years, Princess Anne frequently topped the list of royal family members with the highest number of official engagements completed each year. The figure often reached several hundred events annually, ranging from charity visits to official duties representing the monarchy in many countries. Because of this, within palace circles, Anne came to represent the model of traditional royalty, where duty is placed before personal image. Camilla followed a very different path. When the relationship between Camilla and Prince Charles gradually became known to the public toward the end of the 20th century, it quickly developed into one of the most significant scandals in the modern history of the British royal family. The existence of this relationship was widely believed to have contributed to the breakdown of the marriage between Charles and Princess Diana. For many years, Camilla became one of the most criticized figures in the British media. This context meant that Camilla entered the royal family from a very different position compared with those who were born into the royal household. For many people within the family, especially those who placed strong value on the traditional reputation of the monarchy, Camilla's presence was always accompanied by a certain degree of suspicion. Princess Anne has often been described as one of the most cautious voices in this regard. People familiar with the inner circle of the royal family say that Anne has never openly criticized Camilla. At the same time, she has never fully trusted the role that Camilla might play within the power structure of the Windsor family. Over many years, the interaction between the two women has often been described as a form of quiet, cold war, in which both maintained a clear distance and rarely displayed any real closeness in public. When Prince Charles eventually married Camilla in the year 2005, many observers believed that the moment represented an official acceptance of the relationship by the royal family. Yet acceptance in principle did not mean that every tension disappeared. In the years that followed, Camilla gradually improved her public image through charitable work and through campaigns, raising awareness about domestic violence, mental health, and several other social issues. When Prince Charles later became King Charles III, Camilla's position within the royal family changed significantly. She was no longer simply the wife of the heir to the throne. She became Queen Camilla, a formal title that came with growing influence within royal activities. Yet this very change also made some people inside the royal household more cautious. According to many analysts, Princess Anne has always viewed the role of the monarchy as a structure built on clearly defined duties and carefully limited responsibilities. For that reason, any sign that a member might be expanding influence beyond traditional boundaries could naturally make her wary. Some sources close to the royal family suggest that Anne had previously expressed concern that Camilla was gradually stepping into areas of influence that had historically been managed by other members of the family. These concerns were never voiced publicly, but over time they helped sustain the distance between these two women whose personalities are very different. When looking at the entire picture, the most striking aspect is not a single event, but the length of time this tension has existed. From the 1970s until today, the distance between Princess Anne and Camilla has lasted for nearly 50 years. Throughout that entire period, both women have continued to appear together at official royal events and have maintained the image of unity before the public. Yet behind the scenes, the underlying mistrust between them has never completely disappeared. For this reason, when the dispute at Sandringham erupted in the year 2026, many observers did not see it as a sudden conflict. Instead, they viewed it as the latest eruption of a tension that had quietly existed for nearly half a century. What makes this story even more complicated is that the real cause of the dispute may not simply involve the use of a private wing at Sandringham. According to several sources close to the royal family, the deeper issue may be connected to the fate of another member of the Windsor family, a younger brother who has been largely isolated from public life. And that story may, in fact, be the real trigger behind the confrontation between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. That younger brother is Prince Andrew. During the first months of the year 2026, when the media began reporting about tension at Sandringham, many people assumed the dispute revolved only around the use of a private wing within the estate. However, as more details slowly emerged, the picture became far more complicated. Behind what seemed to be a property-related disagreement was another decisive factor. Within royal circles, many people referred to it simply as the Andrew factor. Prince Andrew has long been one of the most controversial figures in the modern history of the House of Windsor. After many years connected to scandals that seriously damaged the reputation of the royal family, his position within the family gradually diminished. By the year 2025, a final decision was made. Andrew officially lost several important royal titles and no longer held any public representative role. For the British monarchy, this was an unusually rare step. In modern history, very few individuals born into the royal family have been stripped of nearly all official status in such a manner. From a prince who once appeared regularly on international tours and high-level state events, Andrew almost completely disappeared from public life. After losing his titles, his living arrangements also changed. Instead of continuing to reside in the large residences associated with royal rank, Andrew moved to Wood Farm, a smaller house located within the Sandringham estate. Wood Farm had long been known as the home Prince Philip chose for retirement after stepping away from royal duties. The setting there is much quieter than the main residences and attracts far less media attention. This transition created a powerful image. A man who had once been a prominent prince of the Windsor family was now living a nearly secluded life in a modest house deep inside the estate. For many observers, it appeared to resemble a form of unofficial exile within the royal family. However, what happened afterward made the situation far more serious. On the 19th of February, in the year 2026, the very day of Prince Andrew's 66th birthday, an unprecedented event occurred. Police officers carried out an arrest connected to allegations of misconduct in public office. According to early reports, Andrew was held for questioning for approximately 11 hours before being released. The incident immediately sent shockwaves not only through the royal household but across the wider British political environment. Legal sources emphasized that this was the first time since the year 1554 that a brother of the reigning monarch had been arrested by law enforcement authorities. The figure quickly became a detail repeated across international media as an extraordinary historical milestone. The situation did not stop with the arrest. Investigations soon expanded to properties connected to Andrew. Police carried out searches at both Wood Farm in Sandringham and Royal Lodge in Windsor. Images of police vehicles entering the estate, which had long been regarded as one of the most private spaces of the royal family, quickly attracted enormous attention from the media. For the House of Windsor, this was not only a legal investigation, it was also a serious crisis of public image. Every new development was closely followed by journalists and by the public. In that atmosphere, members of the royal family began to express very different views about how the situation should be handled. Princess Anne was widely believed to be one of the family members showing the clearest sympathy toward Andrew. While she did not publicly defend her brother's past actions, she was reportedly deeply concerned about his mental state after years of isolation from public life. People familiar with the royal household said Anne believed Andrew needed protection from intense media pressure and from excessive public attention during such a sensitive period. That belief led to a clear position. Anne was said to support allowing Andrew to continue living quietly at Wood Farm, away from the busier areas of the estate, and with minimal exposure to the media. However, not everyone within the family agreed with that approach. Queen Camilla was believed to hold a far stricter view. According to several sources, she worried that allowing Andrew to remain at Sandringham while legal investigations were ongoing could seriously damage the public image of the monarchy. From Camilla's perspective, Sandringham is not simply a private family retreat. It is also an important public symbol of the royal family. Any scandal connected to the estate could quickly become a major story in international media. This difference in perspective regarding Andrew made the tension between Anne and Camilla far more visible. One side prioritized protecting a brother facing a personal crisis. The other prioritized protecting the reputation and public image of the monarchy during a particularly sensitive time. While these debates unfolded within the family, another detail began to gain importance. In the royal family's summer plans for the year 2026, Queen Camilla was reportedly planning to spend more time at Sandringham. That decision would likely turn the estate into a central gathering place for several members of the royal family at the same time. For Princess Anne, that possibility created another concern. If Sandringham became a focal point of media attention and royal activity, while Andrew was still living quietly at Wood Farm, the pressure placed on her brother could increase significantly. In that context, Princess Anne was reportedly preparing to make a decision that would mark an important turning point. Instead of continuing to rely on the informal agreements that had existed within the family for many years, she chose to place certain usage rights within Sandringham under clear legal protection. And that decision would directly affect the summer plans of Queen Camilla. After the disputes surrounding Prince Andrew began to spread within royal circles, Princess Anne made a significant move. It was not a public statement and not a direct confrontation in front of the media. Instead, she chose a more cautious path, but one that carried a clear strategic intention. That path was the legal route. One point must be clarified from the beginning. Princess Anne did not attempt to change the ownership of Sandringham. Under the property structure of the British royal family, Sandringham is the personal property of the monarch. This means that the ultimate ownership currently belongs to King Charles III. No other member of the family can unilaterally claim ownership of the estate. However, for many decades, the use of Sandringham has been managed through a far more flexible system. Different members of the royal family have been allowed to use specific houses or private wings based on informal family agreements. These arrangements were rarely written into formal legal documents. They were usually maintained as a form of gentleman agreement, an unspoken understanding built on tradition and mutual respect. This system functioned relatively smoothly for many years, while Queen Elizabeth II was still alive. Questions involving Sandringham were usually resolved through private discussions within the family. Her authority as the respected head of the family meant that disputes rarely moved beyond the private sphere. But after the end of her reign, the internal balance of power within the family began to shift. The verbal agreements that had existed for decades gradually became more fragile. As new generations emerged and personal relationships became more complicated, relying entirely on unspoken understanding no longer offered the same stability as before. Within that changing environment, Princess Anne reportedly decided to formalize the use of her private wing at Sandringham through a legal mechanism known as a license to occupy. This is a type of agreement that allows an individual to use a specific property space while the legal ownership remains with the primary owner. From a legal perspective, a license to occupy is not a transfer of property. It does not change the ownership structure. However, it creates a clearer layer of protection for the right to use a particular space. In the case of Princess Anne, this meant that the wing she occupies within the estate would now be defined in legal terms, rather than existing only as an informal family understanding. According to some sources familiar with the legal framework surrounding royal properties, the involvement of lawyers in a matter that had long been handled through family agreements is extremely rare. For many decades, minor disputes involving the use of houses within the estate were usually resolved through quiet, private discussions. For that reason, the appearance of formal legal documents in this situation sent a very clear message. Princess Anne was not only seeking to maintain the use of her wing, she was establishing an official boundary. A boundary that could be defended through legal means, if necessary. The timing of this decision also attracted considerable attention from observers. The legal documents were prepared just before the summer period, precisely when Sandringham was preparing to enter one of its most distinctive phases of the year. According to the annual schedule, the estate would close to the public from the 13th of July until the 3rd of August. This period has long been regarded as the most private time of the year at Sandringham. When the estate is closed to visitors, members of the royal family usually have greater freedom to use the houses within the grounds without public attention. Because of this, the fact that Princess Anne finalized these legal arrangements just before this period led many observers to believe she was preparing for a summer that might bring new tensions within the family. From a legal standpoint, Anne's move was relatively cautious. She did not challenge the ownership of the king. She did not issue any public statements directed at other members of the family. Yet by transforming a decades-long verbal arrangement into a formal legal document, she fundamentally changed the nature of the issue. From that moment forward, the wing she used was no longer simply a space respected by tradition within the family. It became an area with clearly defined legal boundaries. Anyone attempting to alter the use of that space would now have to confront a specific legal framework. Many analysts believe this is the most surprising element of the entire story. After many decades in which matters inside the Windsor family were handled through quiet understanding and personal arrangements, this appears to be the first time in a very long period that lawyers formally entered an internal dispute connected to Sandringham. And that development immediately raised another question. If Princess Anne had strengthened her position through legal tools, what exactly did Queen Camilla stand to lose in this situation? And why did Sandringham matter so much to her that this legal change quickly became a source of tension within the royal household? While Princess Anne was reinforcing her position at Sandringham through legal mechanisms, the other side of the story was directly connected to Queen Camilla's personal plans for the summer of the year 2026. For many royal observers, the changes in Camilla's private life in recent years have made Sandringham more important to her than it had been in the past. For many decades, Camilla maintained a private space separate from royal residences. That home was Mill House, a property located in Wiltshire that she purchased in the mid-1990s. With a price of around £850,000 at that time, Mill House was not an especially extravagant residence by royal standards, yet it carried special meaning for Camilla. For many years, it was regarded as her personal refuge. Whenever royal duties became overwhelming or media pressure intensified, Camilla would often leave London and return to Mill House. There, she could live a quieter life surrounded by close friends and the familiar atmosphere of the countryside. However, the situation began to change when Prince Charles became King Charles III. Camilla's role within the royal family shifted from the wife of the heir to the throne to the position of queen. That transition brought changes to the way her personal life was organized. By the year 2026, according to several property sources, Mill House had been transferred to a new owner. This decision marked an important turning point. For the first time in many decades, Camilla no longer had a residence completely independent from the network of royal estates. Around the same period, King Charles was reported to have purchased another property near the area of Mill House for approximately £3 million. The purpose of that purchase was believed to be ensuring that the surrounding land would not fall into the hands of property developers or new owners who might threaten the privacy of the royal family. Even so, the sale of Mill House significantly changed the structure of Camilla's private life. Instead of having a residence fully under her own control, she now depended more heavily on royal estates when seeking private time away from official duties. In that context, Sandringham became an ideal option. Compared with official palaces such as Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle, Sandringham offers a setting that feels much closer to nature. The vast estate, with its gardens, woodlands, and farmland, creates a quiet environment that Camilla is known to appreciate deeply. People who know her say that Camilla has always shown particular interest in gardening and outdoor activities. For that reason, the idea of spending part of the summer in a quiet wing within Sandringham appeared perfectly suited to the lifestyle she hoped to enjoy after many years of pressure from royal responsibilities. According to the original plans, the summer of the year 2026 could have been a period during which Camilla spent more time at the estate. Sandringham, during its seasonal closure to the public, has long been considered one of the rare moments when members of the royal family can enjoy a greater degree of privacy. However, it was precisely at that moment that the legal decision made by Princess Anne began to have its effect. Once the usage rights to Anne's private wing were clearly defined in legal documents, the possibility of Camilla gaining access to that area was almost entirely eliminated. For many observers, this became the most striking detail of the entire story. While Camilla once had a completely independent personal refuge at Mill House, by the year 2026, she found herself in a situation where she could not access a private space within the royal estate itself. This shift created a remarkable image within the power structure of the Windsor family. A queen, holding the highest position beside the king, was now facing the reality that she could not use a particular wing at Sandringham because legal boundaries had been established by her sister-in-law. As a result, many people began to ask another question about the role of King Charles in this situation. From a legal perspective, Sandringham remains the personal property of the king. That means any dispute regarding the use of the estate ultimately returns to his authority. And that is exactly what makes the situation more complicated. The person standing in the middle of this dispute is none other than King Charles himself, a monarch already facing immense pressure both inside and outside the royal family. When the entire story is viewed through the lens of power within the Windsor family, it becomes clear that the most difficult position may not belong to Princess Anne or Queen Camilla. The individual truly caught at the center of this dispute is King Charles III. As the legal owner of Sandringham, he holds the final authority over any matter related to the estate. Yet as both a brother and a husband, any decision he makes risks hurting one of the two most important women in his family. The pressure surrounding Charles during this period has accumulated from several directions. The first is his health. Since the announcement of the king's cancer diagnosis, the public has closely followed every sign related to his treatment. By the year 2025, some reports indicated that his treatment schedule had been adjusted to reduce intensity, allowing him to return to more royal duties. However, this did not reduce the pressure he faced. On the contrary, balancing royal responsibilities while managing his health made every decision more sensitive than ever. Alongside that personal challenge came the crisis involving Prince Andrew. As the king's younger brother, Andrew has always been a complicated figure within the family. After years of scandals, his arrest for questioning in the year 2026 created a new shock for the monarchy. Each development in the investigation raised fresh questions about responsibility, reputation, and the way the Windsor family manages internal crises. At the same time, another source of tension existed across the Atlantic Ocean. The relationship between Charles and Prince Harry has not fully healed after years of public disagreement. Interviews, memoirs, and legal disputes related to personal security have made the distance between father and son increasingly visible. For a king attempting to maintain the stability of the monarchy, managing family conflicts on multiple fronts creates constant pressure. When these three factors are placed side by side, the picture becomes clearer. Charles is not simply leading a monarchy during a generational transition. He is also confronting three major crises at the same time. The first crisis involves his own health. The second revolves around the legal and reputational problems surrounding his brother Andrew. And the third is the continuing fracture in his relationship with his son Harry. Within that broader context, the dispute between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla at Sandringham becomes another difficult challenge. Both women hold deeply important roles in Charles's life. Anne is not only his sister, but also one of his most loyal allies in royal duties. For many decades, she has been regarded as the most dependable member of the family, someone willing to carry a heavy workload in order to support the king. On the other side, Camilla is the person who has been closest to Charles in his personal life. After many turbulent years, their relationship was finally formalized and became a central pillar of the current reign. During difficult periods involving health concerns and intense public pressure, Camilla has often been regarded as an important source of emotional support for the king. For that reason, any decision connected to the dispute at Sandringham has the potential to alter the delicate balance between these two relationships. If Charles openly supports Anne, it could make Camilla feel excluded from the private spaces she is now seeking. But if he stands on Camilla's side, it may risk weakening the trust of Anne, a woman who has spent her entire life protecting the traditional structure of the royal family. Within that sensitive context, Charles is believed to have chosen silence. No public statement has been issued. There has been no clear indication that the king has directly intervened in the legal dispute involving the wing at Sandringham. However, this silence itself has created another consequence. For Anne, It could be interpreted as a lack of support in a matter she believes is connected to family responsibility. For Camilla, it could also be perceived as a delay in defending the interests of the Queen. For that reason, while Sandringham is simply an estate, the dispute surrounding it reflects deeper tensions within the power structure of the modern royal family. What has drawn the attention of many observers is the possibility that this drama may not end with the summer of the year 2026. It may be signaling larger changes in the future of the British monarchy itself. Viewed more broadly, the dispute at Sandringham is not merely a personal disagreement between Princess Anne and Queen Camilla. For many royal observers, the situation reflects a deeper shift in the way the Windsor family manages property, authority, and internal relationships. For many generations, issues connected to Sandringham were usually resolved through trust and informal family agreements. Different houses within the estate were allocated according to tradition, personal needs, and quiet understanding among family members. Rarely were there formal legal documents defining the boundaries of each residence. This system functioned because of one essential factor: respect for the role of the head of the family and respect for the long-standing traditions of the monarchy. That is why the formal involvement of lawyers in a dispute connected to Sandringham has drawn so much attention. When a verbal agreement that has lasted for decades is transformed into a binding legal document, it suggests that the level of trust between members of the family may no longer be as strong as it once was. This development becomes even more striking when considering the symbolic importance of Sandringham in the history of the British monarchy. It is not simply a vast estate in Norfolk. For many generations of monarchs, Sandringham has been regarded as the true family home. It was here that King George VI passed away. It was also here that Queen Elizabeth II spent much of her private time throughout her reign. The estate once represented family unity, separate from political pressures and ceremonial obligations. Yet by the year 2026, that image appears to be changing. Sandringham is no longer only a private retreat for the royal family. It is gradually becoming a place where boundaries of power are being redefined. Princess Anne clearly wishes to protect what she considers her traditional right to use a particular part of the estate. At the same time, Queen Camilla does not want to lose the opportunity to find a private space within the current royal structure. For that reason, the most striking element of the story is not simply a specific wing within the estate. What truly stands out is the reality that centuries of family tradition, once maintained through mutual understanding and respect, now appear to rely on legal instruments in order to survive. For many people who follow the British royal family, this may be the clearest sign that deeper fractures are beginning to form inside the House of Windsor. What do you think about this story? Is Princess Anne protecting family tradition? Or is Queen Camilla the one being treated unfairly? Comment number 1, if you support Anne. Comment number 2, if you stand with Camilla. If you would like to see the next part, analyzing the story of Prince Andrew and what may actually be happening behind the investigation, press like so that we can continue producing the series. And do not forget to subscribe so you will not miss the latest analysis of the dramas shaking the British royal family. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next video.